I agree with everything you said except for the last part. Minimizing and mitigating the situation is the responsibility of Hamas. Where it's sad to hear, and it is unfortunate, each and every civilian death is a sad moment, and it's not something that we're seeking to achieve. But the situation on the ground where Hamas constantly, systematically uses humans or civilians as human shields, it creates an almost impossible situation for us to fight in. At the end of the day, we have a mission. If we don't go in and attack Hamas in all of its locations and make sure that Hamas is dismantled, then at the end of this war, Hamas will be able to return to fighting and again target our civilians in terrorist attacks. And that is a situation that we are not going to allow to happen. And therefore, what we have tried to do is to move civilians out of the battlefield. Sadly, Hamas has stopped and tried to undermine these attempts to get civilians out of the battlefield. But I hope that in the coming days, all of the remaining civilians in northern Gaza will go out, will evacuate, so that we can focus on fighting the enemy and the enemy alone.
You have released a number of videos to claim that hospitals are used as command centers or launch pads. By the way, for the Indonesian hospital, Indonesia as a country has contradicted it. They are saying that there are no underground tunnels, but also the videos that you have released. Is this a way to preempt criticism for attacking civilian facilities? If tomorrow these hospitals were to be struck, you are already creating ground to say, oh, look, there was a Hamas structure underneath.
No, it's a way of informing Hamas and the world that we see what they are doing, and that we are exposing their vile and immoral practices of using protected special humanitarian sites like ambulances, hospitals, schools, mosques, churches, and UN facilities for their military purposes. What they are doing is in violation of international law. Even war has laws, and you must conduct yourself according. We are bound and limited by humanitarian law. We don't apply all of our force because we fight according to the laws of armed conflict, and it is extremely regrettable that terrorist Hamas isn't doing the same. But we are exposing that to the world, and it is our intention to dismantle Hamas in order to make sure that we bring our hostages home and that 7th of October never happens again.
But during your ground operations, how is the IDF managing to draw a distinction between civilians and Hamas operatives? What are the mechanisms that you have in place?
Yes, we definitely do. And we focus on engaging the enemies, the combatants, and taking them off the battlefield. And so far, we have been very successful. Each and every tactical engagement on the ground ends clearly and swiftly with an Israeli advantage and a decisive manner. And that is exactly how we intend to continue. What Hamas does in order to make the situation more difficult is to have civilians in and near the combat zones to make it more difficult for us to use our capabilities. But as more and more civilians leave out of an instinct to preserve themselves, that is difficult for Hamas, and as time will go by, Hamas will find it more and more difficult to continue to fighting, and at the end of this war, Hamas will be eradicated.